Do you sometimes think to yourself just how wonderful rivals are? They played a pivotal role in storytelling for decades. The Bluto to Popeye, the Tom to Jerry, the Bugs to Daffy, and Ever Fudd, and Wile E. Coyote, that also rivals the Roadrunner. Looney Tunes really loves their rivalries, damn. And I wouldn't blame them. They can create great conflict in the story being told. Video games play this so well. The first Kingdom Hearts has Sora and Riku trying to save Kairi from the side of light and darkness respectively. Mega Man has Proto Man, who tries to stop Wily without any help from anyone or really any tool, unlike Mega Man. The Pokemon series is built on the rivals. From the jackasses in Red, Blue, Gold, and Silver, the friendly rivals of Ruby and Sapphire to now. To end in Black and White, who is an effective polar opposite in morals without coming off as antagonistic or judgmental. Even Sonic the Hedgehog invents rivals for every game, comic, and movie. Obviously, the most popular example is Shadow from Adventure 2. Though, to be perfectly honest, as cool of a character he is, as a rival, he's not particularly interesting. He doesn't have any conflicting ideologies aside from him finding humans reprehensible, which Eggman did perfectly fine, and he doesn't really affect their relationship until the very end. Metal Sonic worked better since he was built as a mirror to Sonic's appearance and characteristics to potentially stop Sonic. Knuckles worked better since he believed Sonic was a threat thanks to the mural on Angel Island. Blaze worked better in Sonic Rush because she had the exact same goal as Sonic, even though, like Shadow, she found Sonic to be more of a nuisance. Hell, even Silver kinda worked better, despite his dilemma being just a diet version of Knuckles' storyline in 3. If anything, if Sonic didn't exist, I would think that would make Shadow's story a lot more interesting, but that's a story for another day. Actually, something I should have talked about in the Sonic video. Never mind. It felt like Shadow existed as a rival through happenstance. Like, you need a little more than an aesthetic connection to really make the rivalry stand out, like a familial connection or an emotional connection. And I'm not saying you can't make the rival look like the main character. You can do both, and they can mesh really, really well. Say with Raven from Gravity Rush, or Sly from Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. But I think there's one character that does it really well, almost to perfection in my opinion. Enter Wario. At the end of Mario 2, you get to fight this bigger, buffier version of the red-clad, I can't tell anymore if he's an actual plumber at the end of the game. And he has the exact same power-ups as you, with the same amount of athleticism. A great final boss for what he is, and while the idea of a gluttonous Mario does feel random, there is some storied history, as Mario and Wario were at one point friends. But Mario, like the sociopath he is, kept bullying the poor guy, so he's been meaning to take revenge ever since. Attempting to copy his now rival's looks and tried to best him. Dude got so jealous he even decided to not only steal Mario's castle, apparently he had a castle, he even started throwing several buckets on Mario's head just to show how incompetent the red where he wants to be is. Honestly dude, if you can't take a bucket off your own head, maybe the yellow lard has a point. By the way, don't ever bother playing Mario and Wario. As puzzle games with the mouse goes, it's kind of nerve-wracking. I can't believe how sluggish the SNES mouse really is. Despite some easy-to-spot similarities, you can easily make Wario his own character, and Nintendo realized that. After Mario Land 2, they decided to make a sequel all about Wario, titled Mario Land 3 Wario Land, or just Wario Land for short. And you'd think, oh, this is going to be a typical Mario game, and it is in some regards. You can jump on enemies and grab power-ups from blocks, and make them piss as hell, Jesus Christ. There are even the exclamation buttons to alter stages, as well as several alternate exits. But that's where the similarities to Mario end. Wario actually can't kill most enemies with the stomp, even if he looks swollen enough to flatten them into a disc. The best way of dealing with them is either the ground pound, a move Mario wouldn't learn until 2 years later, or the shoulder bash that can destroy just about anything from enemies, blocks, or treasure chests. More on them later. These moves are even more potent once you get the bull helmet, pretty much doubling your potential for carnage. But like the original Mario, one hit and you go tiny, and you can't do anything but jump. So get a power up as soon as you can. And it's not just a normal adventure hat or bull helmet you can find. There's this angry vase that gives you the jetpack so you can fly straight for a few seconds. And then there's what exactly do I call this?
That's a penis.
Anyway, this thing turns his hat into a goddamn dragon. Just burn all the enemies to the ground, though you can't bash enemies in this form, which is a little odd to me. As no one in Nintendo played Spyro the Dragon several years before it released, well, the firepower is more than useful at the very least. But my favorite power-up in this entire game? Key. Yeah, you can pick up anything from keys to enemies to even a 10 coin you can manifest from your own ass. And anything you can pick up, you can just throw at enemies, and it's never not amusing. Though, don't throw the key into a pit. They are very important if you want to get as much treasure as possible. This is the main element that stands Wario Land from the mainline Marios. Outside of the many coins you can collect, there are 15 treasures to find in locked rooms. You will have to hit the treasure chest to open them, which means Mini Mario is about as useful as a cockroach. And you will lose a random treasure if you get a game over, but go back to the original chest and you'll be a-okay. Keep as many as you can because they'll help you get the home of your dreams. You'll meet the main antagonist holding the final treasure, Captain Syrup, and she'll use it to summon a honestly pathetic looking genie. Take him out, give him the funds because I guess equivalent exchange, and you can get a home from a measly birdhouse to a castle that'll make Mario's castle shit itself. Get your pockets to the max and you can get yourself a motherfucking planet! With Wario's face slapped on it, obviously. Though I'll be honest, I'm more privy to the log cabin. That looks pretty cozy. That's kind of all I can say. It's a pretty slick introduction to the Wario series. Sure, Mario's name is slapped on the product, and he does make a cameo along a Princess Peach statue syrup stole, but that's all it really is, a cameo. From this point on, Wario has made a name for himself. And by that, I mean he terrorizes a forest next. Funnily enough, Wario isn't even the main character. Toad is. This is one of the only times Toad actually gets a starring role, and it's for a Puyo Puyo-styled puzzle game where you control him to move bombs around to eliminate enemies, while trying to take out your opponent with a tower of enemies. The last half of that sentence is kind of the issue with this game. Your opponent seems to be faster than you'll ever be, and I consider myself a fucking god in these types of games. I don't know about you, but Toad seems a little stiff, and I'm constantly confused on what buttons do which actions. I want to pick up a bomb, I pick up a whole tower because of this, and I'm not sure if I'm going to annoy any Wario Woods fanatics. This is why I prefer the NES version. You don't go up against a computer, you get to go room to room like a mission mode. It's kind of fun without the panic of random bullshit that makes you feel claustrophobic. But I wouldn't consider either of these great puzzle games. It doesn't bother me that Nintendo only re-releases the NES game. Why is Wario purple here? But if you want another game where Wario invades another world, Wario Blast, featuring Bomberman, is your game. Never thought I'd be playing a Bomberman game on the channel this soon, and it's kind of awkward since I really want to at some point. I love Bomberman. But, yeah, it's Bomberman. You put down bombs to destroy blocks, your opponents, and more importantly, yourself. And I'm glad to know that I'm not the only idiot. The CPUs are about as dumb as rocks as well. I'll get back to this when I talk Bomberman as a whole, especially since this is just a character swap of one of the Bomberman games on Game Boy. Now, with those distractions out of the way, Wario decided to go back to the treasure hunting this time. For the Virtual Boy. I actually tried out a Virtual Boy when I worked at a thrift store years ago, and I wish I got that when I had the chance. It was $45, but they put it in a glass case and I was too socially inept to ask anyone after my shift. Thankfully, the 3DS now has the ability to play Virtual Boy games, not only with pretty sweet 3D, but also the ability to change the red graphics to any color you'd like, which is great. Looking at bright red and black for too long would give me a migraine. Cyan is a hell of a lot easier on the eyes. Maybe I was lucky to miss out on that purchase. For the most part, this is similar to the first Wario Land. The movement, power-ups, treasure rooms, though this time you don't have to ram your shoulders to get the prize. There are new power-ups like the Eagle, which is just a jet hat, and the Dragon Hat, which isn't the original Dragon Hat, which now looks like a pervy seahorse. What's neat is that the Dragon Hat is a combination of both the Eagle and the Seahorse Hat, which not only gives you the ability to fly, but also turns the flamethrower into a fire shot. And the new minigames, well, one of them is just a gambling game from the original. The other is this heart collection game that is clearly there to show off the 3D, for its benefits and its faults. Okay, sure, I hit the bat. Fuck you, game. The game does a lot of this background-foreground bounce, especially in the boss fights, and it's kind of a fun bit. But it's nothing special now. Shantae and Mutant Buns do it without any 3D needed. Hell, I played this without the 3D, and the effect didn't change the experience. It's like 3D is a pointless fad or something. A fun fad, but pointless. That being said, it's a better Wario Land otherwise. The level design seems a little more extravagant, and Wario seems a lot faster on his feet. The only problems I have with it is that I wish it had a little more color, obviously. And it seems like getting any missing treasure would be a little bit of a pain in the ass, considering you'd have to backtrack through every level just to get the one you're missing. But otherwise, more or less an improvement. But now let's get back to the true sequel. In Wario Land 2, Captain Syrup returns with the Black Sugar Gang, kind of a lamer name. Though it is better than the 1996 Nintendo character guide calling them Kitchen Tool Pirates. They seem to use plenty of names from Black Sugar Gang, Brown Sugar Gang, Sugar Cane Pirates, Raw Sugar Pirates. Either way, it's clear that they specialized in cavity searches. Sorry. Actually, no, I don't apologize, fuck you. But the return of the Sweet Baby Pirate is the only similarity to the original game because, damn, this game is a complete overhaul. The power-ups are completely gone, as well as the end-of-level minigames. And all the hat moves are baked into Wario this time, with some new maneuvers like rolling on slopes and high jumping. You still have to be a greedy little goblin and collect all the money floating around in the open, and even in the walls, the chimneys, and the sky while hanging on the random owls being forced against their will. Seriously, they just wanted a nap, you fat fuck freak. Get hyped, jackass. Oh, okay, sure. Use your allergies to your advantage, you lucky bastard. I don't know how this big butt bitch got the ability to be immune to all forms of torture, but he can take all of it. Flattening, fattening, inflation, zombification, incineration, intoxication. It's like I'm reading a list of fetishes here. Fetish or not, I think it's a clever way of giving an immortal being power-ups. And yes, I said immortal. Wario can't die at any point. There's no lives, there's no hit points. All you do is lose money. That's kind of it. And most of the power-ups are only used to solve puzzles, and they have limited utility because of it. Hell, the zombie and fat forms are slow as shit, and Flat Wario is unruly in midair. Come on, I just want to go into the crevice. I see the exit, ugh. Now let's get into what truly makes Wario Land 2 stand out from its predecessors, aside from Wario being completely immune to everything. Depending on what you do in a handful of levels, you can branch out into another branch. Shout out to the pathway in the very first level that requires you to sleep in and ignore the noisy alarm clock. I wish I could relate. Normally branching paths aren't a thing I'd compliment, but since the story is non-existent, I can make an exception. Though they do a decent job branching every level together, and it gives you an opportunity to do battle with Syrup and her multitude of mechs and gadgets. Never expected her to be an artificer subclass. And you even got a few mini-bosses like this bitch-ass rabbit that wants you to dunk you into a net, and you spend minutes trying to dunk him back. Come on, get into the net, get into the net, get in there, get into the net, seriously, get into the net, get into the fucking net! Yeah, if there's the one problem I have with Land 2, it's the bosses. Most of them are just wars of attrition, and since you can't die, the only way you lose is when you get tossed out of the arena. It's very annoying, makes the invincibility gimmick less appealing. But the real reason to find a different pass is to collect each treasure, each level hiding one of these minigame doors. You gotta have enough coins to play, though considering most of the levels give you hundreds of coins, you'll have enough chances. If you want to save cash, you can choose the hard mode and hope your eyes land on the right choice immediately. Or you can just be a pussy and choose easy when you can. I got things to do, shut up. And I did say there aren't any end-of-level minigames, but once you finish each level, you play this number-guessing game in order to get that level's piece of a map. Where does that map lead to? I don't know. The entire place looks like a dentist's office after I, and presumably the dentist, took LSD. I can't say though, fuck this final level bullshit with the orbs that I cannot for the life of me find breakable versions of, with oddly timed box spawning over running water and under these stupid spiked helicopter thingies, and platforming that consists of tight little corridors on the one single wall that the game never had you do up to this point. Ugh. That aside, it's certainly a marked improvement over the previous games. And going back to comparing Wario to his, at this point, previous rival, every game from the beginning has shown Wario's personality well as a de facto anti-hero. While Mario is a selfless hero that does everything to help everyone for nothing in return, except maybe a souvenir, Wario is a selfish prick that will steal money and treasure for any reason, from any person. He couldn't care if he helps or hinder anyone in his adventure, as long as the treasure is in his way. That's especially true with the next entry, Wario Land 3. I wonder if Wario has ever flown a 737 MAX. After the crash, Wario discovers this music box in a cave and somehow gets teleported inside it. Once he wakes up, he is met with my new paralysis demon who claims to be a guardian to this world. Wario then has to find the 5 music boxes to release him, and he'll release us. And he'll even let us keep any treasure along the way, which of course is an incentive to the wide-waist wanker. And once again, we get a change to the formula. For starters, none of our abilities are with us at the start, possibly because the crash smashed our cranium, or maybe our soul is trapped into the music box. Whatever the case, we gotta relearn them through certain treasures. The other change is that we have a little more of a non-linear structure, and what is neat is that plenty of the treasure you get are used to unlock new levels and blocked areas in said levels, as early as level 1 where you find the axe to chop down some trees. On paper, this turns Wario Land into a Metroidvania-like adventure, and since I love Metroidvanias, you might think that this would be my favorite Wario Land game, even more so considering that this is considered the fan favorite alongside the 4th game. Yeah, no, not really. I'm not saying it's a bad game, no, for the first few hours I was getting some fun out of it. The landmarks are pretty detailed and fun to explore, and finding the next level is simple since the best options are marked with a shine after you finish the level. I wish that shine stayed in case you stop playing, otherwise you're scrambling around, and later in the game, it gets tiring. Top it off with the unnecessary day and night system that makes exploration more complicated than it should be. And the return of the arena-tossing bosses, including the return of... Get in the goal, get in the goal. Come on, bitch, I just want to leave this stupid box. Get in the goal. Get over and get in the goal. Get in the goal. Get in the fucking goal. I'll throw you into a fucking step! I was willing to 100% this game like 1 and 2, but I was not feeling it by the 5th session. And I said, screw it. Get the boxes and fight the scary clown man, who is obviously not a good guy. Look at this thing and tell me you were convinced. Thankfully, he's the easiest boss, and losing is hardly a detriment. Also, his name is Rudy. Thank you, Dr. Mario64, for that little tidbit. Kind of a left field game to have a Wario Land reference, but okay, that's cool. You know, I wonder if any of the crew visited New York before making this. After sending his ass to the stratosphere, the entire community returns to their original forms. I do like the twist that the enemies were trying to keep Wario from reviving the demon mare clown. And they're relieved that Wario defeated him and gave him what Rudy Giuliani promised him, freedom and his collected treasure. It starts strong, it ends fine, but man, I was hoping to love it a little more than I did. I think if they didn't have it as a level-by-level platformer and just went straight on Metroidvania, it'd be a lot less exhausting, but no, just going in and out of levels over and over again with the addition of the day and night system, it just corroded the entire experience, and with Wario Land 4 just completely changing the formula, I think Nintendo kind of felt the same way. This game was my introduction to the Gold Guzzler, and I was enamored by the beginning cinematic. Wario starting up the car nearly runs over a black cat, and the pamphlet he was holding dropping near it, showing off his destination, a nearby pyramid being excavated by some professor. To Wario, any treasure hoarded inside belongs to him and him alone. And he's going to look cool while he heads over. Right off the bat, it hits you with so much style, and it gives us this catchy as hell hip-hop piece. The music from the other games were fine, but it was more or less typical Game Boy music. And actually, now that I think about it, Virtual Boy Wario Land didn't have music at all. Wario Land 4 decides to make it far more quirky, lots of percussion and vocals I can't understand. It fits the visual design as well, being this neon-heavy graffiti-like style. Not to say the other games didn't have that style either, but upgraded hardware has a better chance of making that more easily pop. If that doesn't make the game memorable, you got some interesting character and enemy designs. The bosses more so. Yes! Beat the child! The Croctus plant as well as the giant cat were the creepy highlights. God, these things are grotesque. It's all just a fun treat to look at, but I'll be perfectly fair. Going back to this game, it isn't that much more complex compared to the previous games. You do have a health bar now for some reason, and you do need to collect wiggly key birds, not the weirdest thing in this game, or frankly any of the games from that matter. And you gotta hit the frog bomb detonator and run back to the start before you get booted out with nothing to show for it. You also collect gem pieces to open the boss door and CDs to listen to whatever these sounds are. There are money and gems to collect, this time letting you play 3 of these minigames. An Atari baseball game, a wheel riding game where you dodge cute cowboys and sexy cacti. When I say fuck a cactus, it's not supposed to arouse. I say that out loud, never mind. And lastly, a Wario face matching game, and you got a lot of fun combinations this can give you. Cheery Wario, Sassy Dracula, Creepy Grandpa, Creepy Teacher, Drag Queen Teacher, Pervy Uncle, Kid That Wants Ice Cream, Eggman, Egg Mouse, Mega Mouse, Wario's, and Wario. That was the most difficult of all of them. What isn't difficult is the final boss, though some of the moves can be a tad obtuse to figure out. She's still a piece of cake, and once you defeat her lips, Wario exits a pyramid with Old Man and Cat, and you reveal that the cat was a woman all along. No, she isn't a Nico, I'm sorry for all the furries out there. This is also your source of endings, by the by, which is a little disappointing, and they aren't exactly interesting. Do you get the spoiled brat, the image that would make any bisexual arrow ace, generic princess, or royal tomboy? You're damn right that'd be the best ending. Good on you, Nindy. I could see why people see this as the best Wario Land game, but nostalgia aside, I think it's missing something. The endings are one thing, but the levels are just way too short with very little to collect in them, compared to the rest of the series anyway. The bosses are certainly the best in the series, and the vibrant colors are just absolutely amazing. But I think this game needed a little more in general. It's the least replayable of the Wario Lands, that's for certain. After this, the Nintendo development team decided to just forgo the Wario Land series and try something new. And that something new involves a little thing called capitalism. Wario learns about the world of video games, grabs a mustachioed laptop, and makes bank, along with his new friends. Mona, a motorbiking troublemaker, Jimmy T, a sporty dancer, 9volt, a skateboarding gamer, Cat and Anna, twin-child ninjas, Crygor, a mad scientist, Spitz and Dribble, a pair of animal taxi drivers, and Orbulon, an alien that crashes on a nearby asteroid and needs to be helped by space buddies? If none of this has convinced you that the universe has divorced itself completely from the Mario series, I suppose there's nothing that will. The main appeal of the game is the marathon of microgames each character will give you, and all of them have a specific theme, from Mona's strange games, 9volt's nostalgic remixes, Spitz and Dribble's science fiction, and Orbulon's culture theme? Shouldn't those last two be switched? I can't say much more than that. You play all the microgames, watch some quirky antics, and finish the game in the span of a little more than an hour. Now, I didn't play the GameCube version, it's basically a party game version of the GBA game. But to end this segment, I wanted to note that it actually has these character portraits with some random tidbits. Like how Jimmy T's hair holds a magical secret, to Cat bullying her sister with no love implicated, and Mona actually having a crush on Wario. There are a billion men on this earth, and Wario's the guy for you? He literally gypped you out of your hard-earned cash, and you were the one that called him out on it. Mona, honey, it's clear that he doesn't give a shit about you, so if you're looking for a smelly grifter type, why not go for someone like Waluigi? Think about it, he's not getting anywhere with Daisy, and you're basically the same girl. A tallish redhead with a chaotic personality type. And sure, he doesn't have the muscle, but you gotta give and take to get the ideal guy. And come on, the guy's got charisma. Look at him dance. Just saying that better options are available. She's also a high school student, while Wario is probably in his late 20s at least. I think we'll leave it at that. Wait a minute, I just realized. Wario Ware is a spin-off of Wario Land, which is a spin-off of Super Mario, which is a spin-off of Donkey Kong. So it's a spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off. Damn, those are a lot of layers. Oh shoot, we're finally at the game that was inspired by the Wario laughing video. If anyone was wondering how my creative process goes, just realize that that is the sound that my brain has been producing for years now. Asking me for any kind of advice is just wasting your time. Where were we? Oh yeah. That is a title that implies a grander scope, and that makes sense, as this is Wario's introduction to 3D. This is also his only foray into 3D, spoiler alert, and I had to wonder why that is. Well, for starters, this was made by Treasure, the guys that created Gunstar Heroes, Sin and Punishment, and Ikaruga. If they make this game as insane as any of those gems, I can't imagine a better choice. And once you start a file, I can't really tell. It's both insane that a gem can be the villain for any video game, let alone Wario, but it's also lame as hell that our villain is just a black gem with a singular eye and tentacles. And Wario falls into a white void while his castle crumbles apart. What is up with this jawline? And there you go, you wake up on a flowing garden with the sounds of R&B backup singers ringing in your ears. I really dig some of these tunes. The first level theme is one of the catchiest songs in any video game, though honestly, nothing can hold a candle to the pause music. Well, that was terrifying. And that's pretty much the most unsettling the game gets, because honestly, the enemies and environment design is pretty standard. There are some fun ideas, like this world being based around the House of Mirrors, but there's not much past it. You go around a prehistoric world fighting dinosaurs, a graveyard where you fight fossilized dinosaurs, a circus where you fight clowns, a desert where you're fighting mummies, and you find whatever in the mirror house. But most of the worlds have the same 4 or 5 enemy types, and some of the enemies make it pretty obvious. These guys kind of look like that autism kid drawing when they go on all fours. Considering this is a beat 'em up in some fashion, fighting the same thing over and over gets a little tiring. And even for a game like this, you're only using a couple of moves outside of the 1-2 punch. You can ground pound like previously, but you won't use it for battle because you'll want to grab any pillar or dazed enemy and swing it around or perform a pile driver. The former is also used for these spinners to open gates, and the latter gives you access to certain puzzle rooms. Some of these actually remind me of a Super Monkey Ball level, and they're about as difficult as well. They contain a couple of neat things. You'll find some of these neat cart containers that boost your health if all of them are collected in a world, and these crystals that unlock the level's boss. Now, these bosses pick up the slack when it comes to weird. Half these things I can't even comprehend, and even when I can, they're still creepy. Give it the treasure to make Wario fight a cherub and a crocodile wearing a wig and lipstick. Now, if you think they give you any form of challenge, absolutely not. Some of these guys can be a bit of a pain, but you get a chance to come back in exchange for cash, and the progress is still intact. And the rest of them are about as challenging as a newborn baby. Hell, this thing was so underwhelming that it became a standard enemy in the last world. What a fucking bitch. And he's also the exception to the same strategy for everyone. Beat them to a pulp, swing them around until you hit the maximum amount of spins, and then swallow up the coins. How the hell did Wario become a human Kirby? I hate it so much. And no, the fight with the Dark Gem isn't any different. Hell, I'd argue it's the easiest fight in the game. Like, this thing is a threat to these pixie fucks? Oh yeah, I didn't really mention them, did I? Yeah, I don't really care. Just do your weird little dance in a white void with your friends that I didn't feel obligated to free. Oops. Yeah, this was a game, I guess. Definitely one of Treasure's weakest works. But even that said, I'd say it's an okay time. Good enough for the music at least. And there is some fun to be had with some of the animations. Seriously, what the hell are they doing? But let's go back to Wario Ware, because this gets interesting. For the longest time, I thought Intelligent Systems was always the developer for the Wario Ware games. However, not only did it take until the second game in the series for them to get involved, they've only been co-developing with Nintendo up until WarioWare Gold 15 years later. Okay, they helped make the GameCube port, but that's nothing interesting. WarioWare Twisted, on the other hand, is kind of a fun start for them. The main gimmick for this one was the gyroscope built into the carts. That sounds like fun. Let's go into eBay. Oh my god. Let's download the GBA emulator on my homebrew 3DS and see if it's anything worthwhile. It's more so an extension of the previous game, just with the addition of gyro games. It is the introduction of 9Volt's best friend 18Volt, a giant 4th grader that makes music. Alright. And Mona now delivers pizza, and by the name of it, it seems like she owns the pizzeria. I thought she was a high school student. God, where have I gone wrong in life? Oh yeah, this is also the introduction of Wario Man. Thanks, Crygor, you have made the world a worse place. Thankfully, Wario Man is about as threatening as styrofoam. Twisted is nothing special, but the next two are widely known as fan favorites. Touched on DS and Smooth Moves on Wii. The gimmicks are what you'd expect. Touch revolves around touching, and Smooth Moves revolves around waving your hand around and hoping the motion controls connect. I played Touch a lot back when it was new, though I'll be honest, it's nothing great going back. It's not very difficult, certainly the easiest WarioWare behind the recent entries. It also doesn't give a lot of variety, and the blowing mechanic only appears in a couple of stories. And if the microphone ever comes back for a Nintendo console, it'll be too soon. I only have so much air to forfeit. The stories are what make the entry fun, though. Mona becomes a pop star. Seriously, I am having so many doubts with the high schooler claims. And she has this jealous rival becoming a partner by the end. What a happy ending. Jimmy has an entire family ripped straight out of the 70s. Crygor has this karaoke machine, Mike, that flies to the Space Bunny planet to participate in a concert. This is also the only appearance of Spitz and Dribble, sadly enough, and Orbulon gets the same treatment as well, whose only contribution was running from being turned into a stew. That stew being created by the most popular character in this series, Red the Devil. And who can blame them? He's just adorable and just wants to make his friend happy. I mean, Ashley's also pretty neat. She has a lot of Wednesday Addams energy to her, that wants to be left alone to learn magic and create potions. Her story is also the only one where there's an actual theme song playing throughout the games instead of dead silence followed up by standard victory and failure themes. That really shows how much the devs love this girl, and a lot of people are on the same page. Hell, she's so well loved that people want this girl in Smash Brothers, which, honestly guys, if Ashley did get a letter, she'd just put the invitation into one of her concoctions and ignore any requests from the noisiest group of toxic dickheads. Now Smooth Moves is the one I was pretty excited for. I never tried this one, and despite my mixed opinions on the Wii as a whole, a WarioWare game on the console sounds like a lot of fun, and I would love to say I enjoyed every minute of it. Well, damn. Yeah, the disc is kinda messed up. I couldn't see the little cat dance with Jimmy T, nor could I see the inventors competition with Krygor and his granddaughter Penny. Penny, by the way, is probably my favorite Wario character. She's just so adorable. She gets better in later games, but we'll talk about that later. I love the other newcomers too, Cricket and Mantis. They're certainly the most charming of the cast. Just a somewhat fish out of water protege, and a sensei that obviously likes to fuck with said protege. It's a shame people don't talk about the newbies in this game, despite it being the fan favorite of the franchise. Go figure. I will give you Jimmy P though. He just kind of exists. I do like that his club is named Spice as opposed to Jimmy's Sugar. That's kind of cute. And his dancing with dogs contrasting with Jimmy's cats is also fun as well. Yeah, still a pointless character, and he never comes back outside of some cameos. The game itself, like Touch, doesn't do much in terms of variety. You could argue it's less considering you only have motion, as opposed to the DS's touch, dual screen, and microphone. Instead, they do something interesting and make you use different poses for the Wiimote. And it does create plenty of challenge and spontaneity to the formula. I also enjoy when they introduce a new technique. They always show you in these ancient Japanese scrolls with a very mellow voiceover. It's really charming, and some of these really did give me a chuckle. Seriously, this was a fun time, and I wish I played more of it. Because the next game on the list was Wario Master of Disguise. Yeah, I'm getting this out of the way, this game is so fucking boring. I didn't get past the second episode, I just couldn't bear going through the slow pace and constant trying to put on costumes that you're only going to use for 3 seconds. The minute I boot up the game, I noticed that everything was so low quality. Lifeless 3D model JPEGs with 3 frames of animation. Wario looks so gross in these cutscenes, and not in the sexy way. And his actual sprite looks like dog shit. Why is his nose so gargantuan? Wario's main costume makes him look like he's wearing a purple pair of underwear over his head. And the fact he calls himself the Purple Wind makes me wonder if that was intentional. That would be a cute segue to the story, but it boils down to Wario insulting this cannoli guy and you talking to this vibrator with a mustache you stole from him, and giving him gems you get from these dumbass chests that contain enragingly dull minigames. I'd find it funny or sad if this guy also wasn't an asshole that I feel no sympathy for. Frankly, he deserves to have some honor ripped from him. Like, Captain Syrup wasn't more complex, but at least she had some form of power dynamic despite being a total dweeb in her own right. This guy is just a rich dip with a tacky outfit. Okay, story is nothing, but the game sucks too. You move with either the D-pad or face buttons, and use the stylus to draw costumes or play the aforementioned minigames. It's draining on the arms, and I want to move on to something else. And thankfully, we got the return of the Wario Land series with...
Yeah, let's go!
Like Smooth Moves, I was really looking forward to finally playing this one. Wario Land Shake It just hypnotized me with the visual design, and I've heard the soundtrack so much over the years. Sadly, the reason I never got into this was, like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of the Wii. Especially with Nintendo, the console always pushed the motion controls, and my enjoyment has always been hit and miss because of it. It's why it took me years to fully appreciate Super Mario Galaxy, for example. To my utter delight, however, finally playing the game, motion isn't really a huge problem. The only times you shake the Wiimote are for shaking coin bags and enemies, throwing items at switches, as well as shaking the ground. No other action requires the waggle at all. Well, there are these submarine games that do require you to tilt the Wiimotes, and they're okay, but damn, they make the levels more claustrophobic than they already are. And there are some gimmicks that require the tilts, and those can be a little finicky, though that could just be the result of me being too close to the sensor. But circling back to the presentation, god damn, I love this art style so much. I know the WarioWare art style has its charm with the clean, thick outlines, motion tweening, and limited animation, But this is what a 2D Wario game should look like to me. It's got a lot of jagged edges, aggressive shading, a little bit of bloom, and a few visual effects here and there. It really reminds me of a TMS cartoon show, and it's really stunning. It's such a shame that this was Goodfield's only stab at 2D animation. The ambition is remarkable, though I guess the budget and financial return just didn't justify another attempt. Just do yarn and fabric for the next few games, it's easier that way. Do it for more appealing characters for good measure. I love Kirby's Epic Yarn and Yoshi's Woolly World, don't get me wrong, but I think a new game like this would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, look at Pizza Tower. Clearly that was inspired by this game, and that was made by one dude, and it got a lot of buzz. Maybe one day we'll have another shot at a 2D hand-drawn platformer from Nintendo. And maybe it will be another return to Wario Land. Seriously, this game has so many fun ideas, from these dash machines that are imperative to the returning escape sequences, to these world carts that you want to keep around for an achievement. The achievements do something, but I'll just say it's mainly bragging rights at the end of the day. And it is how you're getting your extra playtime outside of the typical treasure hunting. The game is about as short as Wario Land 4 if you just rush through it. But what this game has over 4 is the sheer amount of variety at stake. And the bosses are a highlight as well. Every one of them feels unique in their arena design, and man, the final boss with this motherfucker is pretty much a battle between a larger version of Wario. Kinda comes full circle from Wario Land 2, now that I think about it. In fact, it's a great parallel, given that his entire presence is restricted to the very beginning and the final boss. Calm down, Ted. Jesus. And I love the hell out of this ending. In Wario Land 4, he's giddy about the kiss he's about to get. In this game, nah, you eat the bitch that you were tasked to rescue and take the infinite money glitch home. And have Captain Syrup take all of it by the end. Oh yeah, this was also the return of Syrup. I mean, her crew is completely missing, and she's pretty much relegated to the shopkeep. But for once, she does get the last laugh. Plus, that design is sick. Seriously, an upgrade from all this. Man, if I had a nickel for every pirate girl in a video game with a purple color scheme, I'd have 3 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's neat that it happened thrice. Oh god, I think I might have a type. Yeah, I'd put my money on this being the best Wario Land game. Not because of Syrup. I mean, maybe? But I can't say there's a lot I don't like about this one. The submarine is on the mediocre side, and some of the level design can seem obtuse, but they're more so nuisances, rather than flat-out problems. Please, give it a shot if you haven't. And actually, Nintendo, good feel. Get the son of a bitch on the next Switch. People need to try this out ASAP. And after this, Wario Land is no longer really a thing. At least at the time of me writing this. It's all WarioWare from here, and man, why does the WarioWare invasion start with this piece of shit? WarioWare Snapped is a game that revolves around the DSi camera, or in this case, the 3DS camera. And there's the problem. You can't really tell if the camera is picking you up, and the games don't seem to work half the time. Not even the idea of the whole thing being a theme park attraction, or the fact Wario would be okay with child labor would give me any joy out of this. You know what, screw you, I'm going to make my own WarioWare game, with blackjack and Puyos. Hold the blackjack. It's funny how we had a Wario game that felt like shovelware, to a WarioWare game that just lets you make whatever the hell you want. WarioWare DIY, or as I like to call it, Wario Maker Zero. The idea of making your own microgames is pretty exciting, especially as someone who would like to make a video game at some point in his limited life. And having Penny be the teacher is an extra treat. You don't see Penny and Wario interacting much at all, so them bickering at each other and Penny being a total savage is wonderful. I'll admit the tutorials did drain me from wanting to make my own microgames for the video, and the fact that you can't share them anymore limits the appeal further. But it was kind of neat looking through all the tools at your disposal and how simple it all felt. And you know, if this was your introduction to game development, that's all the game really needed to be. It might also be a good introduction to just how destructive the game development environment can truly be. Wario isn't too far off from the real-life CEOs of today. Come on, Blue Origin, we need you to fail on Bezos' next trip. Come on. Now next up is Game & Wario, which I did talk about in the Wii U video a couple of years ago. And I can certainly say my opinions on it haven't changed much. It's just a better Nintendo Land for me. And it is a great showcase for the Wii U's gamepad. Gamer is easily the best game in the collection, and I wish more people experienced it. Otherwise, nothing really crazy about the game in this day and age, even if it is the most unique of the WarioWare titles. Makes sense considering it's not even called WarioWare, I suppose. Now we have the last 3 WarioWare games, and really, there's not much to say about any of them. WarioWare Gold is pretty much a compilation of microgames from the past WarioWares, many of which are remixed for the game. The most notable thing about Gold is that it actually has voice acting, and for the most part, it's pretty solid. Charles Martinet still has, or I guess had at this point in time, the voice acting chops, and most of the casts are still great too. I recently learned that you can actually do your own voice acting as well, which is pretty sweet, but I didn't really find any reason to try that out for myself. Otherwise, Wario is making 3 tournaments involving button tapping, touching, and gyro, having a final trial with all 3 with added blowing games, and Wario becoming a tyrannical dickweed, and having this random little girl just out for blood against the fat bastard. Even with some of the hurdles, this is still a fairly easy game, considering they introduce a coin system, resuming your streak in exchange for coins. That is for the first time though. You can earn more coins through replays, and you can use those coins for this capsule machine to collect multiple goodies, including separate minigames, like the shooter starring a cat. There is no reason I would ever mention that, obviously. It is a fun time, certainly worth a playthrough. Give it a shot while it's still affordable. The 3DS market is getting... ugh. Now, Wario Get It Together is a different spin, not really being a WarioWare in the traditional sense. You still got microgames, but this time you're playing as the characters themselves, each with a specific trait. Some of them are easy to pick up, some of them take time to figure out. It's also interesting how, once Intelligent Systems fully got their hands on the series, they decided to create an overarching narrative. The previous game involving Wario holding a tournament to scrape some money, this game involving the crew getting sucked into the game they were making to destroy bugs breaking their microgames. And now I'm wondering how Wario is getting away with literal children working at his company. Also, why the hell is Ashley working there at all? I mean, Gold show that Ashley is starting to enjoy everyone's company, probably thanks to Red being insistent on her coming along. But I think game development is just not her forte. I'm just saying. But that also leads to the latest game, involving everyone going on an island resort, and of course, everyone is having some fun in the sun, in the water, in the jungles that include a cheeky Wario Land reference, in the past to pose for a caveman, what the hell? In a slasher storage bay to save your friend's mother, a bit out of left field, in the mountains fighting buffed up penguins, and one of said penguins was a disguised girl that seemed to be a fellow martial artist? This series never ceases to entertain, I'll give it that. Yeah, WarioWare Move It is certainly the most exciting game since Smooth Moves, and it's nice how this is a clear sequel to that game, with the added voice production from Gold. The game also does everything in its power to show every aspect of the Switch, like, I'm pretty certain this is the 3rd game on this entire system that the IR sensor is used. And you even need the straps for some of the microgames, like, who the hell ever used those things? Does anyone even remember where they put their straps? I highly doubt it. I certainly didn't. I had to get creative with those bits. But you know, they didn't feel forced. I think this is the most tightly made WarioWare game to this day. They got every idea done in such brilliant execution. Unlike the other games, I might actually go back to this one from time to time. It's a lot of fun, and I think everyone should try it out. And that's the Wario series, and I'm incredibly surprised that there wasn't a single fart in any of these games. Like, there are a couple of ass shots, but no Cloud in the region whatsoever. Sakurai, you fucking hack. Why do people keep giving this cretin any credit he clearly doesn't deserve? All joking aside though, this was a blast to go through. I always loved Wario Land 4 and WarioWare Touch back in the mid-2000s, but I never really gave the rest of it a chance until now, and I'm kinda glad I did. Okay, anything outside of those 2 pillars are kinda weak, and it's not like Land and Ware didn't have their fair share of stinkers. Master of Disguise and Snapped are downright trash. But I don't think there's much of a blight elsewhere. Even Wario Land Virtual Boy was a good time. That should be a paradox of some kind. Thankfully, most of the games here are really easy to get. Wario World and WarioWare Twisted will set you back a few bucks, but the rest of it is at least reasonable in price. Don't get Master of Disguise though. $40 is about 5 times more than I would pay for it. But yeah, go play some Wario Land or WarioWare. You can't really go wrong with any of them. And considering most of them are available on 3DS and Switch, just go for it. Hell, dust out your Wii and play Wario Land Shake It or WarioWare Smooth Moves. I had a innuendo for both of these, but I'm too tired. And I know some of you are a little antsy about Wario Land not coming back, myself included. But there are a couple of alternatives that are, at the very least, out there. I mentioned Pizza Tower earlier, but there's also this game called Anton Blast coming out later this year, and it is such a treat. I played the demo of this game years ago at Sage, and it's now got a demo on Switch, so what are you waiting for? It's absolutely fantastic. And hey, Pizza Tower is also on Steam currently, and it runs absolutely beautiful on Switch. Not Switch.
So I missed.
If you actually have a Steam Deck, it runs perfectly on this thing. I would heavily recommend playing it if you have one. It runs smooth as butter. And yeah, just play both of these games. Play any of the Wario games if you really want to. Like, you know what? I'm gonna play some Anton Blast right now. Like, the demo's fantastic, guys. You really don't understand. Like, this game is fantastic. All of them are great. Just if you're in the Wario mood, just play it. Play any of them. Play any of them. They're absolutely fantastic. Don't play Wario Master of Disguise. I can't stress enough. You will regret playing that. This is your final warning.